Now that you've watched the independent and dependent clauses video, I want to talk with you about run-on sentences. So a run-on sentence, also known as a fused or a comma splice sentence, is a really tricky thing to work with in your writing. So let's start at the very beginning. Would you say that this is a run-on sentence? So note that there is one capitalized word here at the beginning of the sentence and one period here at the end. Run-on sentence or not? That is actually not a run-on sentence. So often there's a misconception that a sentence is a run-on if it goes on and on and on and on, and that is not actually the case. So this sentence back here is properly punctuated. It has a very clear subject, Carl Lewis, and it has a verb, made. Everything else in here is part of the sentence. It's just really long. Now, obviously, you don't want to write sentences that are 239 words long like this one is, but it is not a run-on sentence. Okay, so if a sentence is not a run-on because it goes on and on and on, what is a run-on sentence? What about this one? Is this a run-on sentence? I ran, I fell. Doesn't run on and on and on, but yes, that is a run-on sentence. So a run-on sentence is created when you join two or more independent clauses together in the same sentence and you have inadequate or missing punctuation. So in this example here, I ran, comma, I fell, you have two independent clauses. So I ran, one complete thought with a subject and verb. I fell, complete thought with a subject and verb. They are, however, incorrectly joined with the weak punctuation mark of the comma here. So that is a run-on sentence. It is known as a comma splice because a comma spliced up two independent clauses that needed something stronger to join them. If there had not been a comma back here, if there was no comma here, that would be a fused sentence. That's where two or more independent clauses are just jammed up together. So a run-on sentence is just a sentence that has multiple independent clauses that are incorrectly joined with punctuation or no punctuation at all. So let's review really quickly. Independent and dependent clauses, right? Independent clauses are like tortilla chips. They can stand on their own. They express a complete thought, and they have a subject and a verb. Right? My friend runs 30 miles a week. Subject and verb, complete thought. Salsa, however, cannot stand on its own. Very few of us will just get a spoon and start eating the salsa or drinking it out of the bowl. We typically like to add salsa to something. So in this case, we would dip our tortilla chips into the salsa and we would have an independent clause with a dependent clause adding something to it. So a dependent clause is a fragment. It cannot stand on its own. It does not express a complete thought or idea. That's how we identify them. Here's some examples for you. While eating a sandwich, can't stand on its own. It has to be attached to an independent clause. So they're dependent because they don't express complete thoughts and you just feel like something is missing. So in this next analogy here, I want you to think about dependent clauses as children and independent clauses as adults. And a sentence is a house. So it's a very conservative house. There's all kinds of rules and ways that people can live in this house together because this is grammar after all. So one adult can live in the house all by herself because she's independent, right? So you can have an independent clause in a sentence, period, the end, everything is good. You can also have two adults living in the same house, but only if they are married. So grammar is a conservative place. We can't have adults cohabitating without rules. And so in the world of sentences, we want these two people to be properly joined. So a run-on sentence is created, again, when we have more than one independent clause trying to live in the same sentence or house, but they're not properly married. So we already looked at this sentence. There's a couple things you can do. You can either separate them and put them in their own houses or sentences, independent clause, period, independent clause, period, or you can actually marry them by using appropriate punctuation. So they can get married in three different ways. You can use a comma and a conjunction. One easy way to remember these conjunctions is to remember fanboys, for and nor, but, or, yet, and so, fanboys. So when you have a coordinating conjunction to combine two independent clauses, you want to make sure you have a comma before the coordinating conjunction. So comma and conjunction. Not just a comma, you've created a comma splice, and not just the conjunction either, comma and conjunction. So the comma is not strong enough to separate those two independent clauses on their own, right? So go back to our example of I ran, I fell. The comma is not strong enough to separate those two independent clauses. I ran, comma, so I fell. I ran, comma, and I fell. Those would work. The conjunction by itself is also not strong enough to marry those two independent clauses, so again, it's comma and conjunction. The second way is to use a semicolon. So the semicolon is the little comma with the dot on top. We want to use these sparingly. We want to use them when we really want to show the reader that these two independent clauses, these two sentences, these two ideas are so closely related that I want to just smash them up together. So an example, the sky was clear last night, semicolon, I see clouds today. Two independent clauses joined with a semicolon. The semicolon is stronger than the comma, and I like to think about that as it's a comma with a period on top, makes it stronger. So semicolons, let's see, we already talked about that. The other option is a semicolon in a transitional expression like however, therefore, or nevertheless. The sky was clear last night, semicolon, however, comma, I see clouds today. So you can also have them get their own homes, right? Just move them out one sentence, the next sentence with a period in between. So there's some examples here. The sky was clear last night, period. I see clouds today. And there are, we've already talked about this, the fused and the comma splice. So let's look at an example of a fused sentence. I love to eat chicken for breakfast. My wife thinks I am insane. Obviously, there's two sentences here, right? I love to eat chicken for breakfast. Next sentence, my wife thinks I am insane. So two independent clauses. These are fused because there's absolutely no punctuation to help the reader understand where one ends and one begins. So this is a fused sentence. How could we fix this? Right, we've got three different ways to fix it. We could either put the period in and just separate those two sentences. We could put a semicolon in to show that they are closely related. We could use a comma and a conjunction. I love to eat chicken for breakfast, comma, but my wife thinks I am insane. Maybe and. So I love to eat chicken for breakfast, comma, and my wife thinks I am insane. Something that shows the relationship there. The comma splice is the same thing, only joining those two independent clauses with a comma. So my dream is to travel the world, comma, if I ever win the lottery, I am going to do it. So these are two independent clauses. My dream is to travel the world, can stand on its own. If I ever win the lottery, I am going to do it. Could also stand on its own. The comma right here is too weak to join those two independent clauses. So you could fix this by replacing the comma with a period, replacing the comma with a semicolon, or adding a conjunction after the comma. My dream is to travel the world, comma, and if I ever win the lottery, I am going to do it. So three different ways again. So there's some things where we can practice. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these so that you know that they're here, and it gives you different ways that you can try to fix those sentences. But what I want to show you is, as we go through here, a place where you can have fun with this. So head on over to chompchomp.com. Let me show you quickly what it looks like. Oops. Chompchomp.com is a fun interactive grammar game. So you click on enter right here, and then you are looking for the exercises, the fun interactive grammar exercises. Let's say you want to look at comma splices and fused sentences, which is what we've just been talking about. If you click on the interactive exercise link, it will do a reminder here for you of how you recognize comma splices and fused sentences. You go down to the bottom to click start here. It will tell you to read a sentence and then answer the question, is it a comma splice or a fused sentence? So let's say you choose door number 1 and say it's a comma splice. Sadly, you lose. The sentence did not contain a comma splice. You can keep the cow as your consolation prize, it says. And you can click here to get an explanation, or you can go on to the next sentence. So I think Chomp Chomp is a lot of fun if you want to play around with grammar games. And I will be posting this PowerPoint for you on D2L so that you can go back through and look at how we can distinguish a run-on sentence from a complete sentence. Take care.